Welcome to Mythic Showdowns, where the boundaries of time and universe collide. This is a realm where legendary heroes and villains, born from the depths of Greek mythology, Marvel, DC, and beyond, clash in a spectacle of epic proportions. The sky was darkened by the remnants of a Kryptonian pod drifting silently through the void, its outer shell scorched and battered. Inside lay a dormant being, a creature born of genetic manipulation and forged in the crucible of endless death and rebirth. This was Doomsday, a weapon of ultimate destruction, engineered to evolve beyond any threat. The pod's trajectory carried it into an unfamiliar dimension, where the rules of existence twisted and warped. The rift in reality shimmered briefly before depositing the pod onto a desolate plain in Earth 616. The ground trembled on impact, but the landscape remained eerily silent. Miles away, Cain Marko, better known as the Juggernaut, stood at the center of chaos. His massive form towered over a battlefield littered with wreckage. The crimson gem of Cyttorak, embedded within his body, radiated a faint glow, feeding him with unrelenting power. He had crossed dimensions in search of greater conquests, each step driven by the promise of eternal dominance in Cyttorak's name. Marko grinned as he surveyed his handiwork. A devastated city left in his wake. His confidence bordered on arrogance, for in his mind, nothing could stop him. The disturbance of Doomsday's arrival rippled through the air, a faint hum that resonated deep within Juggernaut's core. The connection to Cyttorak seemed to stir, compelling him to investigate. Another challenge? Marko muttered, his grin widening. He relished the idea of proving himself to his patron, to crush yet another obstacle beneath his indomitable might. Without hesitation, he strode toward the source of the disturbance, his every step shaking the ground. When he arrived at the crash site, Marko was greeted by the sight of a massive figure emerging from the smoldering wreckage. Doomsday stood tall, his gray, rock-like skin adorned with jagged bone protrusions. His glowing red eyes locked on the Juggernaut, exuding a primal hatred. There were no words exchanged, no prelude to the battle. For Doomsday, the presence of another living being was reason enough to destroy. For Juggernaut, the challenge was all he needed to engage. Juggernaut wasted no time. With a booming laugh, he charged forward, his momentum creating a shockwave that split the ground beneath him. His massive fist collided with Doomsday's chest, launching the creature backward into a mountain. The impact shattered the rocky facade, sending debris cascading to the ground. "That all you got?" Juggernaut taunted, his voice echoing through the valley. From the rubble, Doomsday emerged, unscathed and angrier than before. He let out a guttural roar, shaking the air as he leapt toward his opponent with startling speed. The two collided in a thunderous explosion of force, their clash sending tremors across the continent. Doomsday's sharp bone spikes raked against Juggernaut's mystical shield.
Are you watching without subscribing?
Creating sparks and a sound like nails on metal. Juggernaut swung his massive fists, each strike powerful enough to level a city block, but Doomsday met him blow for blow. The battle raged on, their movements turning the terrain into a war-torn wasteland. Doomsday's ferocity began to shine through as he adapted to Juggernaut's fighting style. The initial exchanges revealed Juggernaut's overconfidence. He relied on his invulnerability, believing no attack could truly harm him. Yet, Doomsday's relentless assault chipped away at his mystical shield, a small but noticeable crack forming in the unbreakable barrier. Juggernaut decided to end the fight quickly. He charged again, his unstoppable momentum aimed at pulverizing Doomsday. This time, Doomsday sidestepped with uncanny agility, grabbing Juggernaut mid-charge and hurling him across the battlefield. Juggernaut's massive frame carved a trench into the ground as he skidded to a halt. Rising to his feet, he growled in frustration. "You're tougher than you look. I'll give you that." Doomsday didn't respond. He never did. Instead, he barreled forward, a whirlwind of raw power and savagery. His attacks became more calculated, targeting the edges of Juggernaut's shield with precise strikes. Each blow pushed Juggernaut back, forcing him to defend rather than attack. Juggernaut felt the strain, though he would never admit it aloud. His connection to Cyttorak kept him fueled, but the constant onslaught was unlike anything he had faced before. As the hours dragged on, the fight became a battle of endurance. The once arid plain was now a smoldering crater, the earth scorched and blackened from the intensity of their clash. Doomsday's adaptive nature began to manifest more clearly. His bone spikes grew sharper, his movements faster, his strikes harder. Juggernaut's mystical shield flickered faintly with each blow, the cracks spreading like spiderwebs. In desperation, Juggernaut called upon Cyttorak, his booming voice echoing across dimensions. "Grant me your power, Cyttorak. Let me crush this beast in your name." The gem embedded in his chest flared brightly, and a surge of energy coursed through him. His muscles bulged, his size increasing slightly as his power reached new heights. With renewed vigor, Juggernaut charged once more, his fist colliding with Doomsday in a cataclysmic explosion. The force of the blow created a crater miles wide, the shockwave rippling through the planet's crust. When the dust settled, Juggernaut stood tall, his chest heaving. "Stay down," he growled, his voice tinged with exhaustion. But Doomsday rose again. His bone protrusions were now laced with a faint glow, his body having adapted to absorb and counteract the mystical energy of Cyttorak. Juggernaut's confidence faltered for the first time. He swung wildly, his blows slower and less precise. Doomsday evaded them effortlessly, his counters growing more brutal. With each exchange, Juggernaut's strength waned, his shield cracking further. In a final act of defiance, Juggernaut unleashed everything he had. He channeled the last remnants of Cyttorak's power into a single, devastating punch. Doomsday met it head-on, their fists colliding in a deafening roar. The resulting shockwave flattened the surrounding landscape, leaving a barren wasteland in its wake. When the dust cleared, Juggernaut lay on the ground, his body battered and his mystical shield shattered. Cyttorak's connection had weakened. The gem's glow dimmed to a faint ember. Doomsday stood victorious, his imposing figure silhouetted against the setting sun. He let out a triumphant roar before turning away, uninterested in the broken foe at his feet. As Doomsday disappeared into the horizon, Juggernaut struggled to rise. He clenched his fists, his mind racing with thoughts of revenge and redemption. The voice of Cyttorak echoed in his mind, mocking but not abandoning him. "You have failed me, Cain Marco, but failure is but a step toward greater strength." Juggernaut's eyes burned with renewed determination. He would recover. He would grow stronger. But for now, the battlefield belonged to Doomsday, the embodiment of unyielding evolution.